نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور انفسنا ومن سيئات اعمالنا فانه من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له واشهد ان لا اله الا الله وحده لا شريك له واشهد ان محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى اله واصحابه اجمعين ومن تبعهم باحسان الى يوم الدين. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد، عباد الله، فإن أحسن الحديث كتاب الله وأحسن الهدي هدي نبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة. أما بعد, I bear witness that there is no true deity worthy of worship except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that his Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is his final and last messenger. I praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as he should be praised, and I seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from our evil and from our own actions, from our own evil actions and the evil from within ourselves. O you who believe, have taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Protect yourself from the wrath and anger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by fulfilling your command, what he has commanded you with, and staying away from what is prohibited. And do not die except in a state of submission, in a state of Islam to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. O you who believe, have taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and say what is correct. Say the truth. If you do so, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would rectify and correct your actions. And whomever obeys Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his messenger, then he has already attained the ultimate success. Dear brothers and sisters in Islam, the best of speech is the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the word of Allah. And the best of guidance is the guidance of his messenger Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. وَشَرَّ الْأُمُورِ مُحْدَثَاتُهَا. And the worst of matters are newly innovated matters in this religion. Because whatever you innovate newly in this religion, which the Prophet ﷺ has not established, then it will lead you astray. And whatever will lead you astray will lead you to the hellfire. Dear brothers and sisters in Islam, a quick comment before and a reminder before we start the khutbah is that we should never belittle filling the gaps in the rows and trying to be in the first row of prayers. I find that, subhanAllah, sometimes, especially when it comes to Jum'ah, people are very hesitant to fill in the gaps or to come in the first row. The Prophet ﷺ had said that if you know how much bounty there is in the first row, you would not have any other way to settle the dispute between you who's going to be in the first line except that you would draw on it. Flip a coin. They didn't have coins, but it's the same meaning. This is something that is important. The closer you are to the Imam, the more the reward it is. The closer you are, the probably more attention you be. But it also indicates your careness to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That you are coming closer to Allah. The Prophet ﷺ, when he saw three individuals, they walked in on a halaqah, just a halaqah, right? Three individuals of them, one came closer, the other one stood at the edge, and the third one just left. So the Prophet ﷺ said, one of them, he had come close, so Allah brought him closer. And then the other said on the edge, he was shy that he would leave the Prophet ﷺ's halaqah, so Allah was shy from him. And the one who has left and turned his back, Allah would leave him and turn his back on him. It's also being courteous to the people who come in late. Right? You don't want to sit at the end and take the gap. There is space in front, so people can come in, inshallah, and not spill out early ahead of time. Jazakumullah khair. So today, inshallah, we're continuing with the theme that we have started in my last khutbah, which is a commentary or a thematic commentary on Surah Al-Kahf. The main purpose of it we're discussing is the importance of Surah Al-Kahf and why it has been established as a sunnah that we recited, and why the Prophet ﷺ had mentioned that it's a protection from Masih al-Dajjal. And the last time we talked about that the main theme of Surah Al-Kahf is that it discusses four tribulations that as humans we go through in this world. And if you understand these four tribulations and you protect yourself from them, then truly you are protected. It's almost as if you are protected by surah. You're in a cave, it protects you. This is why it's called Surah Al-Kahf, the verse of the cave. And last time we had discussed the fitna in religion, the tribulation and the test in one's own faith. And we discussed how it is happening throughout history, even in our modern times, maybe perhaps even more. Today, inshallah, we're going to talk about the second fitna that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had mentioned in the surah, and it is the fitna of wealth. The tribulation of wealth. Now, most people don't consider wealth as a tribulation, as a test. They would quite often just, yes, agree that hardship, loss of life, poverty, all these things are a form of hardship, and it is a test. But they fail to realize that also wealth is a test. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us that He would test us in both ways and means. Wealth and poverty. Ease and hardship. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَنَبْلُوكُمْ بِالشَّرِّ وَالْخَيْرِ فِتْنَةً. We will test you with shar. Shar over here means tribulations, hardships. وَنَبْلُوكُمْ بِالشَّرِّ وَالْخَيْرِ. Khayr over here, which can be translated as goodness, but it's referring to wealth and ease and tranquility. It is a test. This is why the Prophet ﷺ, in the dua mentioned in Sahih al-Bukhari, Aisha would mention that the Prophet ﷺ would, in the morning and in the evening, would seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from several things. Among these things that the Prophet ﷺ would seek refuge in, he would say, وَمِن شَرِّ فِتْنَةٍ غِنَى وَمِن شَرِّ فِتْنَةٍ وَمِن فِتْنَةِ الْفَقْرِ وَأَعُوذُ بِكَ مِن فِتْنَةِ الْفَقْرِ. I seek refuge in you, the beginning of the hadith, seek refuge, and then he goes through a list, and among this list he says from the evil of the fitna of wealth. And I seek refuge in you from the fitna of poverty. So these are two things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tests us with. They are a fitna. But what's interesting is that the Prophet ﷺ did not fear in us the fitna of poverty as much as he feared for us the fitna of wealth. Matter of fact, he feared more the fitna of wealth on us than the fitna of poverty. This is why in another hadith narrated by Imam Muslim rahimahullah, the Prophet ﷺ had said, فَوَاللَّهِ لَلْفَقْرَ أَخْشَى عَلَيْكُمْ. By Allah, it is not poverty that I fear upon you. وَلَكِنْ أَخْشَى عَلَيْكُمْ أَن تُبْسَطَ عَلَيْكُمُ الدُّنْيَا. But I fear for you that this world would open itself to you. كَمَا بُسِطَتْ عَلَى مَنْ كَانَ قَبْلَكُمْ. In a similar way, how it had presented itself, this world, the wealth, it gave itself to the previous nations before you. So what is going to happen? فَتَنَافَسُوهَا كَمَا تَنَافَسُوهَا. So you will compete in it. It is very natural. You see wealth, something happens to us. We start competing in that wealth. Similar to how they have competed. فَتُهْلِكَكُمْ كَمَا أَهْلَكَتْهُمْ. And it will destroy you, same as it has destroyed them. What did it destroy? It destroyed their religion. That is the threat of this fitna. That fitna of wealth, that it can destroy your religion. Either by completely making you leave this religion, or destroying your own practices by not making you a practicing Muslim. Or by picking and choosing whatever you desire. And wealth perhaps does have that effect. This is why the king of Al-Habasha, Al-Najashi, when he was questioning Abu Sufyan about the Prophet ﷺ, he asked him an interesting question. And this was one of the ways that Al-Najashi had figured out if this is a true prophet or not, if he came with a true religion or not. He said to Abu Sufyan, and he asked him, he said, to those who follow this messenger, are they the poor and destitute and the weak? Or are they the wealthy, the nobles? So what did he say, Abu Sufyan? He said, no, the majority of those who follow him are not the nobles and the wealthy. Yes, there are some of them that did, but those are the minorities of the wealthy. But the majority does not. And the majority of the followers, in fact, are those who are poor and destitute and weak. This should raise flags in our head that this is really a strong fitna. And so the story that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had mentioned in the Quran is He gave an example of men of both. A person who was wealthy and a person who was poor. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَاضْرِبْ لَهُمْ مَثَلًا رَجُلَيْنِ جَعَلْنَا لِأَحَدِهِمَا جَنَّتَيْنِ. We have given to them the example of two individuals. We have given one of them 2 gardens. How was this garden? It was not like anything else. جنتين من أعناب وحففناهما بنخل وجعلنا بينهما زرعا كلتا الجنتين آتت أكلها ولم تظلم منه شيئا وفجرنا خلالهما نهرا. This person, his garden is a vast garden, 2 gardens that had many trees of grapevines, lots of them. Not just that, but the surrounding of those 2 gardens was surrounded by plentiful amounts of palm trees. It's almost like it created a wall. And not just it, but in between all of this, there is crops. It indicates the fertility of the soil. And not just that, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not deprive it of anything. It gave its produce and its products quite often. Not just that, but in between them was a river. One thinks of this and he thinks it's a part of heaven. It's amazing. So this individual was given this. It's a bounty from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is a fitna of wealth. However, the other person that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had tested with, he was not a wealthy person, rather he was a poor person. So what is the fitna of this wealth? What it can lead to? I'm going to mention 4 things that happen to this individual through the verses of the Quran, so we can be careful of these things. The first thing, or fitna, or a consequence of this test and tribulation of wealth that it can lead to, is it can lead to what this person had said, who is wealthy. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَكَانَ لَهُ ثَمَرٌ فَقَالَ لِصَاحِبِهِ وَهُوَ يُحَاوِرُهُ أَنَا أَكْثَرُ مِنْكَ مَالًا وَأَعَزُّ نَفَرًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has given him the produce of those crops. And so when he was conversing with his friend, the poor one, what did he say? He said, أَنَا أَعَزُّ, I am better than you. I am more wealthy than you. أَنَا أَكْثَرُ مِنْكَ مَالًا, I have more wealth than you. وَأَعَزُّ نَفَرًا, and I have even more power in terms of, manpower. Maybe he had children. He had other people around him. So the first error, or the first consequence of this fitna, it can lead an individual to have vanity, arrogance, over pride, which will lead an individual to be egocentric. Now, arrogance and vanity is something that is very dangerous. It is one of the most devastating diseases of the heart. This is why the Prophet ﷺ had said, لا يدخل الجنة من كان في قلبه مثقال ذرة من كبر. No one will enter Jannah if he in his heart there is a speck of dust of arrogance and vanity. The reason being is because this individual, why is he arrogant? Because what's going to happen is he's going to attribute whatever he has to himself. He will think that he is better than others. And so he will look down on others. But there's even a bigger problem, because this arrogance will lead you to reject things that you feel that it affects your pride, even if it is the truth. This is why one of the reasons that the nobles of Quraysh would refuse the truth from the Prophet ﷺ, because they feel that it affected their pride. They had immense pride. They didn't want to be the ones who are following. They wanted to be leaders. They didn't want somebody to tell them how to run their life. They wanted to tell others how to run their life. And so this is something that is dangerous. Arrogance, vanity. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, when he's talking about this vanity, what it lead to, he said, the Prophet ﷺ said, هي بطر الحق وغمط الناس. With the rejection of what is true, or leaving it, وغمط الناس, looking down upon others. So it's very important to realize that wealth can lead to this. And if you look and scan many of the individuals who are wealthy, and once again, this is not everybody. Yes, there's always exceptions, alhamdulillah. And those are the ones is because they are protected by practicing this religion. But the rest, you'll find that a lot of the wealthy individuals, you can tell they walk with arrogance. They look down at others. How they deal with other people. They put themselves higher than others, where in reality they're not. Because all they have is not from them, but from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is the first thing that would, or first test, this is the first consequence of this test, that a person might fall into this. Now what is the second thing? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَدَخَلَ جَنَّتُهُ وَهُوَ ظَالِمٌ لِنَفْسِهِ. He had entered his garden while he is transgressing upon himself. He wronged on himself. One of the consequences of the fitna of wealth is that it becomes very easy for a person to wrong himself. And how is that? Is because when you become arrogant, you can sometimes not care about the consequences. When you're wealthy, you might not care about consequences. Right or wrong, you're doing it. You feel that nothing is above you. You break what is right, and you go into what is wrong. But also, once again, when you reject the truth, you have to entrust upon yourself. When you look down upon others, you have to entrust upon yourself. Because when you look down upon others, you will wrong them. You will take their rights because you think you are more rightful. You will cut corners. You will buy what doesn't belong to you with your money. And by the way, wealth is a bit more general over here. People think of wealth as just money, the cash, the green, but it's not. It indicates, it reflects everything that belongs to wealth, whether it is buildings, whether it's property, anything. Any form of property that belongs to you. Cars, land, houses, cash obviously. But all this is a form of wealth. Businesses, that is wealth. So the second thing, the problem is that you wrong yourself. So we have to be very careful not to cross the boundaries of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not to make our wealth forget our boundaries with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because sometimes it makes us forget. Now the third problem with this, or that happened to this individual, is when he said, وَدَخَلَ جَنَّتَهُ وَظُلْمُ نَفْسِهِ قَالَ مَا أَظُنُّ أَن تَبِيدَ هَذِهِ أَبَدًا. I do not think that my wealth will ever go away. Many of the people who are rich, they become so dependent on their wealth that they see it so much that they cannot even think, or they don't even comprehend that all this can go in one night. Gone. And so the problem with that is they become so self-dependent on it. They start trusting it more than they trust Allah. They forget their dependence on Allah. And this is one of the consequences of this fitna of wealth. You have to be very careful not to be so much dependent on your wealth, but depend on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Those individuals, they will forget that they can go away, and so they become reckless until they die. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say, أَلْهَاكُمُ التَّكَاثُرُ حَتَّى زُرْتُمُ الْمَقَابِرِ. You have been distracted by accumulating what? Wealth. Everything. Accumulating anything. Everything. Money, children, anything you try to collect. You've been distracted by it until you reach your graves. The fourth consequence was this person had mentioned, and he had said, وَمَا أَظُنُّ السَّاعَةَ قَائِمًا. And I don't think there's a hereafter coming. Whether we like it or not, this statement itself can be expressed either by your words or by your actions. By your actions, even if you're a Muslim. Because when you say, I don't think that the hereafter is coming, you can express that in actions by living your world to the fullest and forgetting to build your hereafter. By indulging in your desires and forgetting the rules of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. By refusing to follow Islam because you want to follow your desire. This is how you express that you don't think that there's a hereafter. Or that your belief in it is so weak. And you do all this because of your wealth. You're ready to cut corners. You're ready to do whatever is haram. Just to protect it. You're not using it for your benefit in the hereafter. But rather you forget about the hereafter. And so you don't build for it. And so this is how your actions can say, I do not believe there's hereafter. Because if we truly did believe in hereafter, it does exist, we would not waste our time with this world. But rather use our wealth to something that is more beneficial. We would not become arrogant. We would not do all these things that this individual has fallen into. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لكم. إن الحمد لله حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. So these are the consequences of the fitna of wealth. So how can we overcome it? How can we stand on solid ground that will protect us from this fitna? The answer comes from the other individual that is mentioned in this story and his advice to this wealthy person. And it's summarized in three things I'm going to mention inshallah quickly. So this individual who's the poor person, he would say what to this person? This poor person told his friend while he was conversing with him, وقال له صاحبه وهو يحاوره أكفرت بالذي خلقك من تراب ثم من نطفة ثم سواك رجلا. Do you disbelieve? Right? He's talking to him. He said, do you disbelieve in the one who has created you from dust, then from a sperm, and then he has fashioned you into a man? لكنه الله ربي ولا أشرك به أحد. But he is truly my Lord and I do not associate with him. So what he did was, he gave him a key to remind him of this fitna, and it also negates arrogance. He reminded him of his origin. What is all our origin? Soil. And then what? A drop of sperm. All of us. So what is there that we would have pride over one another? What is the arrogance for? Created from dust and back to dust. This is how it is. And so if we remember this, that really there is no difference between us and the other person, even if we are wealthy, there is no difference in reality. So what makes us better than others? We are all equal in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's not wealth that differentiates us, but what truly differentiates us is taqwa, our obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is the first way we can negate this. The second thing that he said, and he reminded him, he said, وَلَوْلَا إِذْ دَخَلْتَ جَنَّتَكَ قُلْتَ مَا شَاءَ اللَّهُ لَا قُوَّةَ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. He said, wouldn't you better if you had entered your garden, rather than saying, I don't think this would ever go away, you would say, مَا شَاءَ اللَّهُ لَا قُوَّةَ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. All this is by the permission of Allah. And there is no strength except by Allah. Which means that you're reminding yourself that whatever you had, its source is the will of Allah. If He wills, He'll keep it for you. If He wills, He will take it away. And you are unable to attain it except by the strength of Allah that He gives you to attain it. Your intellect that He gave you, the strength that He gave you, the chances that He provided for you. And if we have this in our minds, a person who is wealthy will then realize that if everything is by the strength of Allah and by the permission of Allah, the only way for us to keep continuing this wealth is to return back to Allah. Is to thank Allah by spending it on what pleases Him. Because if we thank Him, He will give us even more. And then it does not become a source of fitna anymore, because we will start spending it for what pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The third thing that he had mentioned, last thing, is that he reminded him of the reality of this world. That it is transient. He said to him, and he reminded him, you see that I am less wealthy than you are. I have less than you in wealth and money and children. فَعَسَى رَبِّي أَن يُؤْتِيَنِي خَيْرًا مِنْ جَنَّتِكَ. Perhaps that Allah would give me better than your garden. When? In the hereafter. Or in this world. And that He would send upon your garden that He would send a calamity from the sky upon it, and then it will become dust. Or He would make its water go deep into the earth that you would not be able to use it. And a cropland without water is not going to survive. So he's reminding him of the change that would occur, that it is transient. And so the key is for us to be able to go against the fitna of wealth is to remember that this world is transient. Nothing we have is gonna last. It is momentarily. It will change, same as everything else. We're young, we get old. We're healthy, we get sick. We're alive, we die. We're wealthy, we become poor. Or it will be given to somebody else. That is the end of wealth. Either you will leave it or it will leave you. And so you need to use it while it's there for your benefit in the hereafter. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala drives this even through for the next few verses when He says, وَاضْرِبْ لَهُمْ مَثَلَ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا, and give them the example of this world. كَمَاءٍ أَنزَلْنَاهُ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ, like water we have brought down from the sky. فَاخْتَلَطَ بِهِ نَبَاتُ الْأَرْضِ, it mixed with the soil and the crops of the land. And when it does that, what happens? It becomes beautiful and green, and then what? It dies and withers away. That is the nature of this world. And do not be deceived by the fitna of wealth and children, because what is everlasting are good deeds. And this is better for you in this world and the hereafter. Dear brothers and sisters in Islam, we should never, ever, ever belittle the fitna of wealth, of ease and tranquility. Sometimes it deceives us and makes us forget our true nature or our true purpose in this world, to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that it is transient. It can really affect us. It can ruin our hearts by creating pride in it and not using it as something that will benefit us. So the three main things that we should remember, inshallah, always, is that all this is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and from His strength. It belongs to Allah. It's given to us. We should use it properly. And that we should always remember that this is transient and it will not last. And we should also remember our true origin, that we are all equal. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us in this world and the hereafter, and to provide for us what is best for us in this world and the hereafter, and to show us the correct path of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and to keep us firm upon it until we meet Him subhanahu wa ta'ala on the Day of Judgment, until we meet Him in Jannah, until we meet the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam on the Kawthar, and we drink from his hand a drink of water that would quench our thirst on that day, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will place us with His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allahumma ighfir lana al-mu'minat al-hayya minhum wal-amwat warhamna برحمتك يا ارحم الراحمين وسعادة الهدى والتقى والعفاف والغنى. اللهم ربنا اتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم ارنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وارنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه. اللهم انصر المسلمين والمسلمات، اللهم انصر المسلمين والمسلمات، اللهم انصر المسلمين في كل مكان وانصرهم على اعدائك اعداء الدين. اللهم ردنا اليك ردا جميلا، اللهم ردنا اليك ردا جميلا. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. واخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين، وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى اله واصحابه اجمعين، وقوموا الى صلاتكم.